Official British Kashmiri TV, and today we have a special guest, Claire Bidwell. Claire is a human rights activist, in particular the Kashmir issue, and she's also a primary school teacher, and she's based in Scotland. Welcome, Claire, to the Aussie Ali Official British Kashmiri TV show. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me here.
No, you're most welcome. I've been following your work with interest, and I thought it would be an opportunity for you to get on my channel. And the basics of the channel is, as it is in its title in itself, British Kashmiri TV. We've pretty much got Kashmir in our hearts. We know what kind of the scenario people are facing out there. I'm proudly from the Pakistan side, and it's life there is pretty much people are pretty much free there. But in comparison to the Indian side, we're hearing a lot of stories, a lot of horror stories, to be honest, and it's not so great. So what I want to start off, Claire, first of all, is how did you first become aware of the Kashmir issue?
Well, it was initially as a tourist out to India, and I was in Mumbai. And I was it was a little Hindu lady one day that accosted me on the street and, "Hello, madam, shall we walk and talk?" And it was lovely to meet her. And we ended up I was looking for some Kashmiri dolls. So we ended up in a Kashmir sales shop. She didn't have any, there were no Indian dolls, but he ended up selling me 2 Kashmiri rugs, and obviously a whole lot beyond it, because we kept in touch. And then it just happened one day, I'd asked him, "How are your family?" And back came the response that he had no idea because he was on at them. So this kind of into the "what do you mean?" So I'd heard nothing. I knew of Kashmiri rugs and shawls, but I knew nothing of the Kashmir self-determination issue or the administrations or occupations. So as an ordinary human being, really hear that this was happening, what had been done, and as you say, your channel, people know what's gone on, so I'm going to repeat over that. But I was shocked. I was full of a sense of injustice. That took me onto social media channels because it wasn't in our mainstream media, which I couldn't believe. A situation like this where people were locked down, and I think, as Imran Khan said, had they locked down, so 8 million animals, the world would have, the UK would have been in uproar. But it seems when it comes to people, obviously that wasn't the way it was perceived. So I had to go searching for the information to discover it was at the hands of the UK, essentially when they left their empire that caused this particular situation. And so it was just heart-led. I couldn't believe this was happening. And then I think really on the journey, I like to, it's that way, I'm just one person, but the power of when we communicate, even this is an example now, when we meet with others and talk, can be that power. And it's searching for that power of the people, really, I think, for this situation, in that the basis that the more people we have lobbying our government, lobbying the United Nations, awareness to create more people to come to the cause for humanity, the larger the voices grow. So that's my kind of quest, and that's how I came to it.
Excellent. I'm really happy to hear that. With regards to your trip to Kotli Azad, Kashmir, how did you find the experience? Did you notice, and because you went to the Indian side and you saw what was kind of the atmosphere there and what was happening there, what was your experience of the Pakistan side?
My comparisons of the two countries, they're vastly different. When you first arrive in Mumbai, I mean, I haven't been to any other airports for it, but it was very crowded. Beautiful walling, but full of about 30, 40 years of dust and dirt, and the smell. Disappointing when you go to India with these visions in your head that you've been told, and you've watched Slumdog Millionaire, lots of Bollywood movies, and then you arrive in this very disappointing, what once was. But however, it's all an experience. I didn't go there for glitz and glam, and it was hiring people everywhere, and it was just such an experience. And I got in the car and we were zooming along, and there's people on their bikes and their cars like this between. Their reflexes are incredible, because how I think I kind of drove along like this. The buildings was the buildings was a big contrast. A different archaeology and poor, and when you went into India, you flew over the slums and you could see the sprawling of it. So Mumbai itself, the hotel I stayed, lovely. It was right near the gate of India. It was I really enjoyed that. The staff treated me like a queen. I was really respected. I found when I walked along the streets, there was a lot of people staring at me, and but that's it. And I remember getting my photograph taken at the gate of India, and like a whole flock of people standing around watching me have my photograph taken. Very busy, very friendly. Just for me, I described it as like a mix of everything that life has to offer, good and bad, and you put it all in a mixing pot and add yourself, and that is India. And
Can
then
I just interrupt you? Sorry, Claire, I was going to ask you. When you do you have an inclination of going to Indian Kashmir just to have a look? Did you ask? Oh,
never. No, it was on my radar because I hadn't thought about it. I knew I probably didn't even know where Kashmir was at that point in time.
What year? What year are we talking about? How far back we're going?
The year of the lockdown. So 2 years ago. We're now 2019. So I'd gone to Mumbai just before. Yeah. That's how I then became aware, because I kept in touch with the person that sold me a rug. So, and that just before the lockdown, and then came back. I think even when he was saying he was from Kashmir, because he was going to be getting married and he wanted to invite me out to his wedding. And I was like, this is great. What hospitality. So it didn't happen because we've lost contact now with the situation with things in Kashmir, and I think a fear to talk, to be honest. So when I've been to twice, and this was obviously my first visit into Kashmir. When I first went out to Pakistan, Islamabad, I was looking to try and arrange a whole world tea event. I wanted to host an event in Kashmir, in Mazad, and stream it out live to the world. And we had representatives, and we still have, in different countries that would then organize events on the street. So I found Pakistan completely different in terms of, a grand arrival, clean, spotless, beautiful airport. You walk out of these double doors into just this, I don't know, you feel like a bit of a movie star arriving through these doors. It's incredible. So, and then so much more civilized. I wasn't stared at. Nobody asked me to have my photograph taken, which had happened about 100 times in India. The driving, they drive on the same side as us in the UK. It was also much calmer. People fight over who's going to pay the bill, not, they want to be the one to pay it, not the other way around. I was totally spoiled. People took me to their heart and then wanted to show me different places. It was a really good experience. And for my campaign work, it was incredible. It was supported. All these people, their links already, could share it and shared it. My visit this time, to Kashmir, the intention was as a tourist, and I'd applied for my visa as such, but it was also to release our official human rights global mandate. And we planned to do that in a Kotli tea. There was no officialdom of it other than get together with some Kashmiri people to share the photos on social media, and that be it. So I'd met with the Pakistan consulate before I went. I'd spoken with a diplomat and was told that this would be okay on my visa. It wasn't a political rally. I wasn't getting involved into anything like that. So a really nice welcome in Pakistan, lovely trip through to Kotli. I have with me what I call, the team members. I'm calling them my bodyguards. And they were a fantastic hosts. They really were. But I had one day, I met a Kashmiri in Kotli, and we went up to some viewpoint. and we met with of his, and it was incredible day. I really I liked the culture. I felt like I was going back 20 or 30 years, and it was really refreshing, because in many ways we've come on too fast here and lost a lot of community feeling, and so it was busy, but people were respectful, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I was always in company. I was never on my own, whereas in India I was on my own, so I had different, you know, unless I've met up with people like the little Hindu lady Sheila that I met. And then, so it was all great until sadly the wasn't allowed to go ahead because the security.
What's the reason for that? Why was that?
Well, it seems that it was a security issue, and that as a British tourist, they had to take my safety into account. And they believed that because I'm India's radar, my Facebook is banned in India, my YouTube is banned in India, you know, that I could be a target, or who could be a target. So they wanted to offer us security. My young team, that was a lot for them, because we were constantly, you know, spoken to, and they didn't want security to be following our every move. Sadly, it was kind of, the freedom was curtailed, but for a justifiable reason. And I think as a Scottish tourist, there was no way, you know, it was difficult, because at times I'm like, right, I just want to run away. I just want to meet people. I'm not here to cause any bother. I just want to meet people. And I felt a bit, for me, that, like, you know, I'll just go anywhere and adventure. So I was tempted at one point to just run. But then I thought, oh no, that's come back on my hose guards, and I have to respect and honor their wishes. So it was Pakistan really after that. And sadly, you know, there were people I was going to be meeting with at the tea event that I couldn't, but we still did a soft launch of the mandate. I was there the night before, and it was lovely, you know, met the manager of the place and lots of other people keen to meet and talk about Kashmir and ways forward. So I mean, in some ways an overwhelming experience, and you can't put all of it into words. It's as they say, it's a feeling and doesn't always come out. So as far as campaigning was going, I met so many people as well, and was really honored in Pakistan itself. I was given some peace awards by INSPAD that are out there, local media. I met with Michelle Malik, Gardizi, that does a program. Everyone was keen to encourage and support me and highlight the work that's going on, which you know, which is an honor. You know, when you're trying to raise your voice and discuss certain things, when people embrace that and support you and take that on, that's encouraging, you know, and it encourages you further.
Claire, I was going to ask you about Pakistan. The Western narrative over the years has been that it's a backward, how can I put it, unsafe terrorist country. You know, so there's certain narratives that went about, but the last sort of, I would say, 4 or 5 years, and especially under Imran Khan's premiership, has been a big change. I mean, myself, since 2017, I've been about 5 times. So that just shows how much I'm actually enjoying going there, and I feel quite safe as a British Kashmiri. So that was the first thing, the narrative, and what obviously you've sort of dispelled that somewhat by your by obviously you going out there and your visit, and basically just to talk about that narrative, and in line with that, how do you see Pakistan's role, as well as Azad Kashmir, but Kashmir in general picture? Because you've seen Imran Khan, you may have seen him in the United Nations when they had that summit where he was saying the Kashmir issue needs to be sorted out and the right to self-determination should be carried out by the will of the Kashmiri people. So in line with that, how do you see Pakistan's role in this? But and I'll come back later to the India role of things, but the Pakistan side of it, how do you see it? What's your perception?
That's probably one of the most challenging questions I could ever be asked. And one of the reasons for that is to raise Kashmir's voices, I've heard so many sides of every angle, from every triangle, what should be doing, what they should be doing this way, what they're doing well this way. And so I try to, one, listen to all of these, but then also my own perception. I kind of come down on a neutral basis on whenever anybody is speaking up for Kashmir, let's highlight it, let's raise it. You know, we could discuss, I think, somewhere along the route, same with any country, you know, let's talk about Boris Johnson if I wanted and what he's not doing for the Kashmir issue. So I don't want to make it personal. And I guess I'm more about the human rights and the politics. But I guess I think it's very difficult. I think it's very, very difficult for any country because of bigger world workings, because of trades, because of everything else. And there's obviously a lot of diplomatic stuff that we are not aware of. I think that goes on. But, you know, Modi's not speaking up at all, yet Pakistan, you know, and if they wanted to play the same game as India, then why not go quiet? Why not, you know, and it's not easy for them to raise voice. I think to go back to the narrative, yes, you're right. The narrative is about there being terrorists. If you go on to the Foreign Office website, the UK Foreign Office website, if you're considering going to Pakistan, I think reading that would just put you off it. It's unsafe this, it's unsafe that, there's this here. And I read it after I'd been. And I just thought, oh my goodness, you know, nothing like that. You can get knifed in London, you know, there's crimes everywhere. So I do think the narrative of the West has played into that, where they support India. Perhaps, if I'm honest, what I would like to see, and I know what Kashmiris are working for in Azad, is to be given a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more say, give them some governance themselves, and perhaps form an Azad Kashmiri voice so they have a voice as well. But from what it can see, you know, Imran Khan particularly, he's not changed his tune. Self-determination, you know, and self-determination under, you know, human rights, and indigenous people have the rights. There's no reason why it shouldn't be three-way. You know, it doesn't have to be choose Pakistan or India. It could be independence, India and Pakistan. And I don't see why they wouldn't support that. And we have to sometimes have the faith and the belief. It's just like with me, I've been accused of being, you know, a Pakistan agent. I've been accused of being an Indian agent. I've even been accused of being an English agent. I'm just an ordinary person. So the same with Imran Khan, will be accused of doing all sorts of things. He's also trying to make his way in this as our Pakistan. And, you know, it bases on humanity. If we're all just work on humanity, on how can we make this better for humanity, then that should help. And I think Pakistan is certainly showing the ways towards that. And as I said, it's complicated because, you know, for my situation in Kotley, they could have said, okay, then go free, do what you want, and who knows, I might have got shot. And then the English government are going to say, excuse me, what happened to our citizen, or the Scottish government? So you can't expect to walk into a disputed territory, you know, 15 miles the border and be allowed to just wander around. It wouldn't have happened in Northern Ireland, you know, back if someone had gone in there to chat. So it's very easy to look at it and say, oh, it's not free, you weren't allowed to be free. But you balance it out, you can see why. But I think, you know, more dialogue and more governance with the people in Azad Kashmir, I think, would be helpful. But you know, it's very easy now with hindsight. You want to say, oh, just go over the border and get them. This is turning out horrendous, but it's not.
Yeah, I was just gonna say to the viewers, whoever watching this live transmission, it's basically, you feel free to ask questions. And we've got Claire Bidwell, who's a human rights activist for the Kashmir issue, for their right to self-determination. And yeah, feel free to ask. So far, we haven't had any questions so far, which is, you know, don't be shy, ask away. Claire, I just wanted to ask you about the basically, you went to Kotley. Where else did you go? Did you go anywhere else? Did you go Dadial?
No? Only that I drove through Dadial and I stopped and photo taken near the Chowk. I wanted to go
Okay,
inside,
okay,
but there
okay.
was
Yeah,
so
the Makbul, Shahid Makbul Butt. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he was a Kashmiri activist as
yeah,
well. Very famous.
the part,
In fact, I
yeah,
didn't know much about him until I went out there in January to do some vlogging. Where during the pandemic, I had some holidays and I was made to take them then. So I flew out and I decided to vlog around where I live in Kashmir, where my family's from, and basically Dadyal and Mirpur and Kotli and various places. So when you get a chance, I'm sure I'll send you a few links. You can see what I was getting up to out there. Again, when I go out there, it's so peaceful. People are really nice. The food is amazing. The tea is next level. I don't know about yourself, but that's the thing I was touching on. Tea for Kashmir is one of your sort of how can I put it? Would that be that's synonymous with what you're doing, isn't it? Tea for
yeah.
Kashmir.
It's part of our campaign. I get, yeah. I mean, that's how we go under the name of for this campaign. Let Kashmir decide solidarity, because that's our
Yes.
main aim. It's about a solidarity and then raising awareness of the issue. We have a petition that underpins our campaign, which is about seeing the
Mm.
release of Kashmiri prisoners, all troops removed. Justice is met and the right for self-determination, and we unite under that. And so by having the solidarity and simply having a cup of tea, whether it's as an event or with friends or on the ground, hashtag solidarity for Kashmir, that puts them all together. You just need to search on any social media platform for hashtag solidarity for Kashmir, and all the evidence is there. So this
Yeah.
can go our petition, when we send it to world leaders and the United Nations in this day and age, that is evidence of people supporting. So that's
Yeah.
a campaign that we're pushing forward. We've got an international
Yeah.
signature campaign as well for the release of Yasin Malik and all political prisoners, where we're hoping people will get on foot and collect signatures, because even if we all only got 10, how many that could be when we compiled them. And then the global mandate, which we're hoping to bring out and get endorsement, something that everyone could unite around regardless
Yes.
of their ideologies.
Yes. I mean, the key aspect of when I'm looking at it is that India needs to come to the table. There needs to be a resolving of this situation. And so far, they have abstained. They're not willing to talk, negotiate. Let's have this self determination. How do you feel? How can we get Pakistan, India, and basically the world? I know it's a bilateral issue we keep hearing, but really they need to get onto on a table and sort this out. What do you reckon?
Yeah,
How possible?
I think you make a very valid point with India. And I remember even going back to when I first became involved in this issue, and I went to a local MP hustings about who would be my candidate for the area. And I went and I asked this question. Now, one of the MPs at the hustings had been an MP for a long time, and his opening lines were, India are notoriously difficult to deal with. They will not respond, they will not dialogue, they will not talk. And, his words are often echoed in my head when we see how often the United Nations have written them a letter, how often we know the United Kingdom government written to them regarding human rights. And I'm sure with Pakistan continually they're not, India are not speaking to anybody. And it's, yeah, I think, and all we can do is watch their actions. That's what's left. So even the fact that I'm a simple, like all of us, ordinary person in the world, yeah, and I don't have many followers on my YouTube, and my Facebook didn't have many followers. We're talking 2,000. On YouTube, it's only 1,000. Yet I've been silenced from speaking in India as well. Plus, we know the magnitude of all the others, the journalists, the human rights activists, their political leaders. It's not, I don't know, the world isn't acting more. And all I know to do is to unite the people, to put pressure on or encourage our governments. Because if the people are acting, that gives our governments the strength to act. People keep
Yes.
talking, like similar with Neldella and the apartheid in the 80s, that campaign that gained strength, that came from people.
Yeah.
And that in our history, that's often where solutions lie, in the people. But so people talk about boycotts of India. Now, we can all do that personally. We can all encourage others. At the moment, we wouldn't get our government to boycott India because we don't have enough support. So we can look at the moment, they're trying to put through trade deals. So I believe there's a petition going around that we're asking to human rights in their trade deals. So not to trade with countries. We know we've got an uphill battle with our present government, the lead figures. It's not all conservatives, you know, many conservatives like Paul Bristow, Conservative Friends of Kashmir, you know, they're leading it on the human rights effort and allowing people to voice through the Conservative Party their opinions. To me, it's going to come from the people. Obviously, there are diplomats working at higher levels that will be doing their things that I don't know all of them or some of them. There's a lot of people in organizations that are doing as much as they can. I mean, I'm thinking, for example, JKLF have written to United Nations looking for a plebiscite administrator. Kashmir World Awareness in America are constant writing. In Canada, there's a big group out there that are, you know, they're all, people are working on their different governments, different countries. And I think for me, if I work that people are doing, and obviously the more connections I make with people, then I know what I'm doing, they're doing, and they can tell me. And it's a case of highlighting all this work and bringing people to their cause. You know, I'm not here to tell anyone how to solve it. Yes, more people will come along and help us. And I think self-determination, like the slogan, "Let Kashmir decide," is simple and effective. But we've got to get there first. And at the moment, at the moment, it keeps looking further away. So that's the challenge. And like Palestine, you know, they have a huge solidarity movement and a lot of work done in the UK with, and it would be awesome to kind of join forces with them because it's the same kind of situation that we're seeing, and for people to just keep raising voices for Kashmir and not, you know, there's a lot of dialogue about how we want to be independent, so we're going to fight just to be independent. We want to be with Pakistan, so we just vote for pro-Pakistan. And whereas for me, I feel that there needs to be a more unity to get to the situation where you can then fight over how you want to go. But it's a challenge, and it's, you know, it should be about human rights and what's the main issue, and people are suffering. You know, the reports are out that Modi's, you know, committing genocide already. It's at stage 8, stage 9. I think we're all aware of that without the figures, because we see, you know, with the arrest of the leaders, the arrest of the journalists, the silencing, you know, and they've all got things hanging over their heads. So it's quite concerning.
I was just going to say, JKLF, that's Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front. And you touched upon the Palestinian issue as well. With the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, I came across them in college. This was about 1999. And I wasn't very much aware of the Kashmir issue, to be honest. Being a British Kashmiri, I mean, there wasn't really much discussed, you know, at home. And it was kind of like, oh, we're okay. India side doesn't concern us. But when I read the literature, I was astounded how many people have been killed. The figures that they quoted in a leaflet, and it was I think it was English language. I had to do a speech, it had to be a political speech, but with rhetorical sort of wordings and stuff. So I chose the Kashmir issue, and that's how I first got aware of the situation. And then obviously with the Palestinian issue, that's always been on the news and well documented, and it never seems to be, no one's really interested in resolving it. They're pretty happy for, especially the Western powers, for Israel to go about their business like they are, taking away, you know, settlements. Making settlements, taking away land from Palestinians, and I think I'm fearing the same is happening in Kashmir. The very same thing.
Absolutely. It's all about economics. I mean, our foreigners were involved in sponsoring the sale of Kashmiri land, you know, and we've just seen in Srinagar now the UAE buying land to build on. So an outside person that doesn't know anything about what's happening in Kashmir will think, oh, that's great. India are developing in Kashmir. But it's great that you learned about it and came to it, because that's something that the British Kashmiri diaspora have said, that they need to be telling their children, need to be telling their young. I think it's a testament to Kashmiris that this 72 years on, these, this information and everything is all here. They've held that and they've carried that forward. It's not got lost. So it's kind of owed to them now. For me, it's the social media is a new weapon. It's our new tool. It's something we've not had in the 72 years. But what we have to make sure that we're doing is all singing the same tune, that there's human rights abuses happening here. Look at these figures. It's not a competition about how oppressed Assad is and how oppressed, we need to look. Just because people are raising voice for India doesn't mean, there seems to be people in Assad going, well, hang on, what about us? And so making it about the whole state of Kashmir, let's get self-determination for you, regardless of what voice you raise. We're all together. This is an injustice. Either side will say Kashmir wants to be Pakistan. Others will say Kashmir wants to be independent. Until there's the referendum, and I know there's been done already, but until there's a referendum and democracy, and for me, that's the way forward that I see.
I was just going to say, have you heard a slogan, Kashmir wants to be part of India?
No. No, and I think that they have lost any hearts or any minds or any aspirations that they had. No. And I mean, we can talk, you and I can talk freely. Anybody from Indian occupied Kashmir, you won't see them having a show. You won't even see them appearing on a show, because their family will be in real danger if they do. So you don't see them. They're silenced in the UK as well. And that's really noticeable. So no, I haven't heard anybody say they want to be, but some Indians do. And I mean, this is what we try to assert, not against Indians, or against Pakistans. It's about the actions. And thankfully, a lot of Indians are standing up against the Modi government. I saw a really good interview by he was a Supreme Court judge, and he did a talk in Oxford University under the motion, Modi needs to go. And it was fantastic, because he talked about the economics, he talked about the extremists, the attacks on Muslims. And what happened was, it's not been allowed to be in India, and they've kind of shut it all down. So people in India are being deprived of seeing. Modi's very much controlling what people in India, of course, they share the narrative, Kashmir is India.
Any sort of future plans to visit London, or like teaming up with any of the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, or are there any?
I would absolutely love to. There's a meeting going on in February. One of my difficulties at the minute is I did have a slight accident. Life gets in the way. Everything I do is free, and it's from my own pocket. There was the support for the trip out to Pakistan. We put a GoFundMe, and to be really honest with you, financially, I cannot afford to make any trips down south at the moment for the foreseeable future. I can't even afford really to get to Glasgow. So I had been doing some work in Glasgow and down in London. So at the moment, no, I'm a bit limited to my online work and writing and that activity. But as soon as my finances allow a little bit of freedom and I've got my car seat out, then yes, absolutely. But that's the nature, it's the nature. Everybody's struggled under COVID situation and what's been happening, and I think it's impacted in many ways. So there is that. I was lucky. I was making the connections, and I seem to have a bit more money around and a bit more freedom, and but it will restore again.
God willing. Excellent. I'm looking for questions. It looks like I think I made a bit of a mistake. The title of the show should have been interviewed with Claire Bidwell, but it's showing live Liverpool chat. I'll edit that later. It's not a problem. I think I've confused the viewers. I do apologize. But But yeah, so far no questions, which is a bit disappointing. But never mind. I'm sure we'll have another opportunity. I'm sure in the future, and we
Yeah,
can
I mean, if anybody wants to leave in the comments below
yeah
this, I'll log on and happy to answer anything. So,
yeah yeah
but
we can
yeah,
do that.
I mean, we're in February. We'll obviously be having our solidarity event again. So
I'll look out for
we have
that.
that, and we're on Facebook as Let Kashmir Decide
Yeah.
Solidarity, or Let Kashmir Decide. They'll find us. And I'm on YouTube as Claire Bidwell, where I share a lot of my work and campaigning on
Well, one
there.
other question, Claire, just sorry to interrupt you. Facebook, what's going on? Why are you having to create new accounts? How many you've created now?
Quite a few. We've lost two group ones, and we're now on the third group one, but thankfully it seems to have stayed. I've just lost, I think it was my fourth. It says it goes against their community standards. And to be honest with you, I'm just what I've seen. They obviously, what I'm seeing is what's against their community standards, but it doesn't seem to be against real life standards. So for me, it's the Indian lobby in there with their money, and obviously the Zionists, and they have their control over this. So anybody speaking up is, you're breaking community standards, and you're removed. You won't see anybody from India removed, as it were. So for me, that's what that is. So same happened with Twitter. I was off Twitter, but you essentially have to find different what's the word, equipment to get on with and set up a new account and carry on again. Otherwise they can trace your URLs, and they find you and they just close it again. So to get, they fight, I'll fight back.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with the was it Palestine? I covered the demonstrations, and YouTube had restricted it, and I got it reviewed, and then there was nothing on the offensive. I was just covering the demonstration. There was no, bad language, no, anti whatever. It was as it was, and then they managed to they lifted it. So these things, they are being watched. Keywords are flashing up, and they are censoring people and channels and what have you. But we've got to, as you say, we've got to be the voice for human right causes, and we must speak up against injustices, and that's what you're doing, which is fantastic. And yeah, let's hope that continues and justice prevails.
Yeah, well, inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah. Inshallah,
Inshallah.
cool. Yeah. I think we'll round it up. It's been lovely talking to you, and I'm
And to
sure we'll
you.
stay in touch on WhatsApp and on phone, as well as Facebook. And I'll be following your channel quite attentively. In fact, I may. I mean, we're closing to 3,000 subscribers. There may be a few of your videos I will play on my playlist as well, so
Oh,
that
you're
create more
welcome.
awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
So that'll be
fantastic. Yeah.
yes. So people can be made more aware of your work and the great work that you're doing. And I'm humbled as a British Kashmiri to see a person from Scotland really passionate about Kashmir, passionate about human rights, and not just yourself. I mean, I'm sure throughout Great Britain there are a lot of people like yourself that share that kind of that thinking, and I'm very humbled to be
Yeah,
sincerely
and
honest.
you're right. There are, and particularly, I mean, I'm originally from England. I am, but living in Scotland, and the Scottish people are very human rights focused. They're all about humanity. They're really empathic. So on the streets of Glasgow, I find very like-minded people. They're happy to sign the petitions. It was alarming within the young people that they'd never even heard of the word Kashmir. They didn't know Kashmir rugs. They didn't know Kashmir shawls. So that showed me the reasoning for the grassroots efforts
Yeah,
that needing to get
yeah,
on ground. And ultimately, as Let Kashmir Decide, that's what we would like to do, is have events, Kashmiri events, that people can come to, whether it's around food, but essentially they can, learn more. And that's, COVID stopped a lot of things for us. However, we have been able to build up some good teams and good unity on social media in the meantime. And I think once we're ready to come out on the streets, you know, I'm hoping out with a roar. And one day we will have, you know, the Solidarity global event for Kashmir, I hope, and that will be supported by thousands of people.
Yes.
So thank you for this opportunity to raise voice and for all that you do as well.
Thank you. No worries. Once again, thank you for your time. And yeah, inshallah, we will, I'm sure we'll do future shows together. Inshallah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care, Claire. Thank you so much.
Thank you.